It's a quiet North Country morning. The kind where the sky hangs low and, gray over the Adirondacks. The kind where the road feels like it's just passing time instead of going anywhere important. You turn onto the John Brown Road in North Elba, New York. It's narrow, it's rural, it's calm. Snowbanks in the winter, tall grass in the summer. There's no dramatic sign. There's no flashing history warning. It's just a name, John Brown. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think it belonged to a retired farmer who liked apple orchards and early bedtimes. But this road leads to the grave of a man who helped push the United States into civil war. And to understand how that happened, you have to rewind. Slowly. And that's what we're going to do. As if you're in a vehicle that still had cassette tapes. And you had to rewind them slowly. This is Street Sign Storytime. And I'm your host, Matt. I recently, had some family and friends doing the old hockey stuff in Lake Placid. Near Lake Placid, North Elba. North Elba, John Brown Road, and that's how we got there, just in case you are wondering. And if you're not, well, sorry about it. Let's jump right into this, though, because I know your time is precious, and you probably want to know the man who moved to the mountains and why he has a road name, named after him. So without further ado, here is the Street Sign Storytime of the John Brown Road. In 1949, we're heading back there. John Brown moved his family to the Adirondacks. If you haven't been there, highly recommend it. And he settled in North Elba. This wasn't a retirement plan. It was a scenic escape. Or was it? It was ideological, right? A wealthy abolitionist named Garrett Smith had donated thousands of acres of land in the Adirondacks to black families as part of a plan to help them qualify for voting rights in New York, which required property ownership at the time. The settlement became known as Timbuktu. Might have heard of it. But it was harsh land, had brutal winters. Trust me, I can relate. Rocky soil and isolation. Brown came not just to farm, but to help. He assisted black farmers with clearing land and establishing homesteads. He believed slavery wasn't just morally wrong, it was a sin that demanded action. And this is where the tension starts to build, because John Brown didn't believe in waiting for politics to fix things. He believed God demanded confrontation. So if you stood on what is now John Brown Road in the 1850s, you'd see a small farmhouse, livestock, wood smoke. But inside that house was a man who had already witnessed violence in Bleeding, Kansas, where pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers were killing each other over whether Kansas would enter the Union as a free or a slave state. In 1856, Brown was involved in the, I'm going to say this wrong, Pottawatomie Creek killings, where 5 pro-slavery men were murdered. That's when the county started whispering his name differently, not as a reformer, but as something more dangerous. Still, he would always return to North Elba, to this road, to this house. It became his anchor, and eventually, it became his ending. October 16th, 1859, Brown and 21 followers launched a raid on the federal arsenal at Harpers Ferry, then Virginia. You know what his plan was? Seize weapons, armed enslaved people, trigger a massive slave uprising in the South. But it didn't go as planned. Local militia surrounded the arsenal. U.S. Marines led by Colonel Robert E. Lee, which we just did a full beard tour on the Beard Law Studio. Everything comes full circle. Well, they stormed the building. Brown was captured on October 18th. And here's the twist most people don't realize. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't apologetic. During his trial, Brown spoke calmly, saying he believed he was acting in the accordance with God's will to end slavery. December 2nd, 1859, he was hung for treason against the state of Virginia. The nation split in reaction. Some called him a terrorist. Others called him, a martyr. Within 18 months, a civil war would begin. Now here's where it comes back to the North Country. After his execution, his body was transported north, back to the Adirondacks, back to the farmhouse in North Elba. He was buried there on December 8th, 1859. The quiet road leading to his home became something else entirely. A pilgrimage site. Writers, activists, soldiers, they all came. The grave marker remained simple. No grand monument, just stone, trees, wind. From that moment on, John Brown Road wasn't just a location. It became symbolic ground, because the man buried there had forced America to confront its own hypocrisy. And here's where the story kind of loops closer to home, because during the years before the Civil War, St. Lawrence County, especially Augsburg, served as a key crossing point into Canada for freedom seekers escaping slavery. The St. Lawrence River wasn't just water, it was a final line between bondage and freedom. So while Brown chose violent uprising, others in the North Country fought quietly, ferrying people across rivers, hiding them in their homes, risking imprisonment. Two different strategies, same moral battle. And the geography, it connects them. The river, the mountains, the border. The North Country was never as isolated as it felt. It was part of a national storm. But here's the part that lingers. John Brown failed at Harper's Ferry. His raid was crushed. His plan collapsed. But historians widely agree that his execution intensified sectional tensions between the North and the South. His failure accelerated the coming war, which means the quiet grave at the end of the John Brown Road marks not the end of a radical man, but the beginning of the Civil War's final countdown. The road doesn't lead to defeat, it leads to ignition. So the next time you drive past a street sign with a name that sounds harmless, ask yourself this: what happened here? Who walked this ground? What ideas were born in houses that look completely ordinary? Because sometimes history doesn't shout. Sometimes it waits quietly on a back road in the Adirondacks, under a simple stone, on a road named John Brown. And the question isn't whether he was right or wrong. The question is this: if you believe something was evil, truly evil, how far would you go to stop it? That's all we have for this week's Street Sign Storytime. We're going to hit the road, find another street, another name for next week. Take care, everybody. Safe travels out there.